Get out of my gym! This place isn't for girls like you.
Blake Mercer jabbed a finger toward Nyla and Naomi beside the squat rack.
Those weights are for athletes.
Trevor smirked.
Look at them. Matching outfits, matching attitudes. Bet they can't even lift the bar.
Nyla stayed still while Naomi met their eyes calmly.
We're here to train. We came to work hard, mind our business, and get stronger just like everyone else in this gym.
Blake laughed.
You two wouldn't survive my warm-up.
Trevor kicked Naomi's gym bag across the floor.
Pick that up and go find a treadmill before someone gets hurt.
Blake pointed toward the exit.
Touch those plates again, and I'll throw you out myself.
Neither bully realized the twins had spent years fighting in MMA cages, training to make arrogant men beg for mercy. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The doors to Iron Forge Athletic Club were heavy and glass, and they swung open like the entrance to somewhere that wasn't meant for them. Nyla felt it the second she stepped inside. The cold air hit first. Then the smell. Rubber mats, iron, and sweat baked into the walls over years of use. The equipment was new. Everything gleamed. Chrome barbells lined the rack along the far wall like trophies. The mirrors stretched floor to ceiling, doubling the size of the room and reflecting every person in it back at themselves. And right now, every person in it was looking at Nyla and Naomi. The music didn't stop. The weights didn't stop moving. But something shifted. A ripple of awareness rolled through the room the moment the twins walked in, like they had interrupted something private. Nyla kept her chin level. Her old gym bag hung from her right shoulder, the strap repaired twice with duct tape. The fabric faded from black to a dull gray. Naomi's bag matched it exactly. Same wear, same repairs, same story. Their matching hoodies were clean but not new. Their sneakers were worn at the soles. None of that mattered. Nyla told herself that and kept walking. Naomi stayed close at her side, eyes already scanning the room. They were heading toward the squat racks in the back when the two of them stepped into the path. Blake Mercer moved first. He was big, not just tall, thick through the shoulders and chest in a way that said he had spent years building himself into something that filled rooms on purpose. He wore a sleeveless shirt that showed off arms covered in veins, and he moved with the slow, easy confidence of someone who had never been told to move out of the way. Trevor Kane came with him, stepping up to Blake's right, like a shadow that had learned to laugh. He was grinning already, the kind of grin that meant he had already decided this was going to be fun. They stopped directly in front of the squat racks. Whoa, whoa. Blake held up one hand, looking the twins over like they were something strange that had wandered in from outside. Y'all lost? Trevor laughed, short and sharp, like a bark. Seriously, Trevor said, tilting his head at their bags. What is that? Did you two sew those together yourself? What's holding that strap on? Is that tape? Naomi's jaw tightened. Nyla felt it without looking. We're here to train, Nyla said. Her voice came out flat and calm, the way she needed it to. Same as everyone else. Blake smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Nah, see, that's the thing. This room is for real athletes. He gestured around the space like he owned it, which, in every way that mattered here, he seemed to think he did. Not for girls playing dress-up with their little tape bags. Snickers came from somewhere behind them. Nyla didn't turn to look. They moved around the two men and set up at the nearest open squat rack. Naomi loaded the bar with focus and intention, hands moving quick, eyes forward. Nyla stood close, watching her back. Then Trevor walked over. He didn't say anything at first. He just reached out and pulled a plate off the left side of Naomi's bar. Casual, like it was nothing. like the bar wasn't already loaded on the other side. The bar tilted hard. Neela's hands shot out and caught it before it could swing. The metal was cold and heavy against her palms. She held it steady, arms trembling for just a second before she got it back under control. Naomi spun around. Her fists were already closed. Nyla stepped between them, not in front of Naomi, just close enough to press her arm gently, fingers wrapping around her sister's forearm. One touch, a signal they had used since they were kids. Wait. Naomi breathed through her nose, hard. Her eyes were burning. Around them, phones were out, students filming, not stepping in, not saying a word. Blake smirked from a few feet away. Maybe y'all should bounce before this gets embarrassing. Naomi looked past Nyla and locked her eyes directly onto Trevor's face. "Touch my bar again," she said. Low Trevor didn't move after Naomi said it. He just stood there with a half-smile on his face, like he was deciding whether to take her seriously or laugh. He laughed. "Regret it?" He repeated her words slowly, tasting them. "You hear that, Blake? Little girls got threats." Blake pushed off the wall he was leaning against and clapped twice. Slow, mocking. "Cute," he said. "Real cute." Nyla kept her hand on Naomi's arm for another second, then let go. She turned back to the bar and began reloading the plate Trevor had pulled off. Her hands were steady. Her face said nothing, but her eyes were tracking everything. They lasted another 20 minutes on the floor before it became clear that Blake and Trevor weren't done. The two men kept circling, kept making comments just loud enough to carry. A few other gym members laughed along, the kind of laughing that came from wanting to stay on the right side of someone powerful. Nobody offered to help. Nobody said, "Stop." When Nyla and Naomi moved toward the auxiliary mat room at the back of the building to work on their ground drills, footsteps followed. The auxiliary room was smaller. Rubber flooring, blue crash mats spread across most of the ground, a row of mirrors along the far wall. No one else was in there when the twins arrived. That changed fast. Blake and Trevor came in behind them and let the door swing shut. "See? I've been watching you two," Blake said, walking a slow circle near the edge of the mat. "And I think you came in here thinking you were going to impress somebody." He stopped and looked directly at Nyla. "But I don't think you got what it takes. I think you're soft underneath all that attitude." Neela set her bag down near the wall and turned to face him. "You can think whatever you want," she said. Blake moved fast for a big man. He crossed the mat in 3 steps and grabbed Neela's wrist hard, yanking her toward him like he was going to prove something in front of an audience. His grip was rough and tight, fingers digging in, his whole body leaning into the power of it. He expected her to pull back, to stumble, to look afraid. Nyla did none of those things. She stepped into him instead of away. Her free hand dropped to his knee, and she pivoted her hip sharply into his body, hooked the back of his leg with her foot, and drove her weight forward. Blake left the ground. He hit the mat hard. The sound was loud and flat, the kind that rings in a room and doesn't leave quickly. His breath punched out of him in a grunt. He lay there, blinking up at the ceiling, arms out, completely unsure of what had just happened to his body. The room went silent. Then Trevor moved. He came straight at Naomi, no hesitation, arm already swinging. But Naomi slipped left, smooth and quick, letting his fist pass her ear by inches. She grabbed his extended arm, stepped deep into his stance, and swept his front leg out from under him in one clean motion. Trevor went down hard on his side. Before he could process it, Naomi was already behind him. She wrapped her arm across the front of his throat and pressed, settling her weight into his back with calm, controlled precision. Not choking him out, just holding him there, making sure he felt exactly how helpless he was. Trevor grabbed at her arm with both hands and got nowhere. The room stayed completely still. Someone near the doorway breathed out slowly. A few phones were already up, recording. Wide eyes, open mouths. A guy near the back wall finally spoke. Where did you learn that? Naomi didn't even look at him. We fight MMA, she said simply. Training for a national qualifier. She released Trevor and stood up, stepping back, brushing nothing off her sleeve like the whole thing had been routine. Trevor rolled onto his side, coughing. Blake was sitting up now, chest heaving, jaw tight. He looked at Nyla, then at the phones pointed at him, then back at Nyla. He stood up slowly. The humiliation was all over his face, but something else was sitting underneath it. Something colder. Something that had been insulted in a way it had never been insulted before. He held her gaze, and his voice dropped to just above a whisper. You just made the worst mistake of your lives. The bus smelled like rubber and old upholstery. Nyla sat by the window, watching the campus buildings slide past in the dark. Streetlights flashed across her face one at a time. Naomi sat beside her, scrolling through her phone with both thumbs moving fast. It's everywhere, Naomi said. She tilted the screen so Nyla could see. The video was already at 40,000 views and climbing. Someone had caught the whole thing. Blake hitting the mat, Trevor going down, Naomi settling into the chokehold, like it was nothing. The comments were rolling in faster than they could read. These girls are built different. Blake Mercer just got folded by a girl half his size, El Mau. Iron Forge has never seen anything like that. Who are they? Somebody find out their names. Naomi let out a short laugh. Not a happy one. The kind that comes when something feels good and scary at the same time. Nyla didn't laugh. She watched the comments pile up and felt the hope trying to rise in her chest. She let herself feel it for exactly 3 seconds. Then she pressed it back down. Don't get too comfortable, she said quietly. Naomi lowered the phone. Can I enjoy this for 5 minutes first? Enjoy it, Nyla said. Just don't trust it. Naomi leaned her head back against the seat and stared at the ceiling of the bus. The fluorescent strip light above them flickered twice. Outside, the city rolled by, dark storefronts and lit-up gas stations and empty sidewalks. Then Naomi's phone buzzed with a notification she didn't recognize. A direct message from an account she'd never seen before. She opened it. Hey, my name is Marcy Bell. I work at Iron Forge. I saw what happened today. I just want you to know what you did took guts. Blake and Trevor have been doing this kind of stuff to women at that gym for months. Pulling weights, blocking equipment, saying disgusting things. Management never did anything. Nobody ever pushed back before. Thank you. Naomi read it twice. Then she handed the phone to Nyla without saying anything. Nyla read it. Something moved across her face. She handed the phone back. Save that message, she said. Naomi nodded. Screenshot already taken. The bus stop closest to their apartment building was 3 blocks from Coach Tate's gym. They walked there instead of going straight home, the night air cool and sharp against their skin. The gym lights were still on. They could see Coach Tate's silhouette through the narrow window beside the door, moving slowly between the equipment. He already knew. Of course he did. He handed them each a water bottle and sat down on the edge of the heavy bag, crossing his arms. He had the kind of face that didn't waste expressions. Every line on it meant something. Saw the video, he said. Then you saw they started it, Naomi said. I saw that, he said. I also saw the look on that boy's face when he got up. Neela sat down on the bench against the wall. We handled it clean, Coach. No cheap shots. We didn't even finish the chokes. I know you did. He looked at her steadily. That's not what I'm worried about. The gym was quiet, except for the hum of the old wall unit and the distant sound of traffic outside. "Boys like that," Coach Tate said slowly, "with money behind them and people paid to protect them, they don't lose quietly. Ever. Not in public. Not on camera." He paused. "That video is already embarrassing powerful people. And powerful people don't sit with embarrassment. They move." Neither twin spoke. He looked at both of them. "I'm proud of you. I want you to understand that. But I need you to be ready, because what comes next won't look like a fair fight." It didn't take long. By the time they got home, the campus praise posts were already thinning. By midnight, several had disappeared entirely. By morning, they were almost all gone. Nyla noticed first. She was up before sunrise, sitting at the small kitchen table with her laptop open, checking the forums out of habit. The threads that had been full of comments the night before were either deleted or locked. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then her phone buzzed. Then Naomi's buzzed right after. Formal email. University letterhead. Subject line: Notice of Misconduct Investigation. Student Conduct Code Violation. Naomi came out of the bedroom still half asleep, phone in hand, reading the same email with her face slowly tightening. She looked up at Nyla. Nyla looked back at her. Neither of them said anything for a moment. The email accused them both of initiating unprovoked physical assault against two student-athletes on university property. It cited witness statements. It mentioned possible suspension of campus privileges pending a formal review. "Witness statements," Naomi said, her voice flat. "From who?" Nyla closed her laptop slowly. "From whoever Blake paid to remember it wrong." Dean Evelyn Porter's office was on the third floor of the administration building. It had tall windows, framed certificates on every wall, and furniture that looked like it had never been sat in too hard. Everything about the room said, "Important things happen here, and they happen the way I decide." Porter sat behind her desk in a dark blazer, hands folded, reading glasses pushed up to the top of her head. She looked at the twins the way someone looks at a problem they've already planned to solve. She let the silence sit for a moment before she spoke. "I want to be very clear that this office takes all misconduct reports seriously," she said, in the kind of even tone that doesn't change no matter what it's saying. "Regardless of circumstance. Regardless of who is involved." Naomi's jaw tightened. Nyla kept her face still. "Based on the initial report and the statements provided," Porter continued, straightening a paper on her desk that didn't need straightening, "we are required to act immediately to ensure the safety of all students during the investigation period." She looked directly at them. "Your access to Iron Forge Athletic Club is suspended effective today, pending the outcome of the review." Dean Porter folded her hands on the desk and smiled. It was a careful smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, the kind people practice in mirrors until it looks real enough to use on other people. "I want you both to know," she said, "that this office is committed to a fair and thorough process." Nyla sat with her back straight, hands resting on her knees. Naomi sat beside her, one leg bouncing under the table. Neither of them returned the smile. "We have questions," Nyla said. "Of course." Porter opened a thin folder on her desk. She glanced at it the way someone glances at something they've already memorized. "The report states that one of your fellow students was thrown to the ground," Porter said. "That's a serious—" "He grabbed my wrist first," Nyla said. Her voice was calm, clear. "That's on video, multiple videos." Porter gave a small, patient nod, the way a teacher nods at a student who has said something they disagree with but don't want to argue about. "We are aware there is footage circulating. Our office is reviewing all available material." "Then you already saw Trevor take the weights off my bar," Naomi said. Her voice had an edge in it, sharp and barely held back. Mid-set, while I was lifting. "You saw that too, right?" Porter paused. A small pause, just long enough to be noticeable. The report we received speaks specifically to the physical altercation that followed, she said. What happened prior to that moment is part of the broader review. Naomi stared at her. So the part where he almost dropped a bar on me doesn't count, but the part where my sister defended herself does. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Porter's smile didn't move. That was the thing about it. It just stayed there, perfectly in place, like it was painted on. Nyla leaned forward slightly. We'd like to see the witness statements. The ones the report mentions. Those are confidential at this stage of the process, Porter said smoothly. Confidential from us, Naomi said, but not from the people who wrote them. Several students have expressed that they feel unsafe coming forward openly, Porter said. She let that sentence hang in the air like it meant something solid, like it explained everything. Nyla looked at her. She thought about asking the next question. She knew the answer already. She asked it anyway. Unsafe from who exactly? Porter closed the folder. I understand this is frustrating. I truly do. But until the investigation is complete, the suspension of your facility access remains in effect. We hope to resolve this quickly. She stood, which was her way of ending the conversation without saying it was over. Outside Iron Forge, Blake and Trevor were waiting. Not inside. Not pretending to train. Just standing near the entrance with their arms crossed like they owned the door. Blake had his phone out, recording the moment with a lazy half-grin on his face. Trevor laughed at something he said, and the sound of it carried across the courtyard. Campus security stood next to the twins as they were told, formally and in plain language, that they were not permitted to enter the facility. Blake watched the whole thing with the expression of someone watching a show they already knew the ending to. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Coach Tate listened without interrupting. He sat in the small back office of his gym, elbows on his knees, hands clasped together in front of him. The fluorescent light above flickered the way it always did. The sound of a speed bag echoed from the other room. When Nyla finished explaining, he was quiet for a moment. Without certified training hours logged at an approved facility, he said slowly, the qualifier committee can pull your eligibility. It's in the registration terms. He looked at them both. You knew that. We know, Nyla said. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm gonna make some calls, see what I can do. But his voice didn't carry the confidence his words tried to hold. The medical bill was on the kitchen table when they got home. Their mother had left it there without comment, which was somehow worse than if she had said something. It was a thick envelope, already opened, the pages sticking out slightly. Nyla picked it up, looked at the total at the bottom, set it back down. Her mother was in the next room, watching television with the volume low, pretending not to be thinking about the same number. Naomi's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Their landlord's name. She already knew what it said before she opened it. Final notice. Rent 3 weeks past due. Pay in full by Friday, or we begin the removal process. Naomi read it twice. Then she put her phone face down on the counter. She walked out of the apartment without saying anything. Nyla heard her footsteps on the stairs, moving fast. She found her in the stairwell 1 floor down. Naomi's fist was pressed against the wall, not pulling back, not throwing punches, just pressed there, hard, like she was trying to hold the wall up or hold herself together. And the line between those two things had completely disappeared. Her shoulders were shaking. When Nyla got close enough, she could hear her crying. Not loudly. Naomi never cried loudly. It came out in tight, short breaths, like she was fighting the tears the same way she fought everything else, and losing anyway. Naomi, don't. Her voice cracked on the single word. She kept her face toward the wall. Nyla stood beside her. She didn't reach out yet. She just stood there, close enough for Naomi to feel her presence. This isn't about the gym anymore, Naomi said. Her voice was raw, broken at the edges. It stopped being about the gym, It's the bills. It's Mom. It's the apartment. It's all of it, Nye. All of it at the same time. She finally turned, and her eyes were red, cheeks wet, chest heaving with the effort of holding herself upright. We can't afford to lose this fight. We literally cannot afford it. She pressed her fist into the wall one more time. Hard. The sound echoed up the empty stairwell. Then she slid down until she was sitting on the cold floor, back against the wall, knees pulled to her chest. Nyla sat down beside her. The stairwell was quiet. Just the two of them, shoulder to shoulder, in the dim light, with everything they were carrying pressing down on both of them at once. The heavy bag swung hard to the left. Naomi caught it with a round kick that cracked through Coach Tate's small gym like a gunshot. Again, Coach Tate said. He stood in the center of the mat with his arms crossed, gray stubble on his jaw, a stopwatch hanging around his neck that he hadn't looked at once. He didn't need it. He could feel time the way some people feel weather coming. Naomi kicked again. Harder. The chain holding the bag groaned against the ceiling bolt. Again. She kicked again. And again. Each strike louder than the last. Each one carrying something that had nothing to do with technique. Stop. Naomi didn't stop. She threw another kick, then followed with a three-punch combination that made the bag fold inward. Naomi, stop. She threw one more hook. Then she dropped her hands and stood there breathing hard, sweat running down her temples, her wraps dark with moisture. Coach Tate walked toward her slowly. He was 58 years old. His knees didn't work the way they used to. His left shoulder clicked every time he raised his arm above his head. But when he moved across a mat, there was still something dangerous about him. Something that remembered every fight he'd ever been in. He stopped in front of Naomi and looked at her the way only he could. Not angry, not disappointed, just honest. "What were you hitting?" he asked. She wiped her face with her forearm. "The bag." "No. You were hitting Blake Mercer. You were hitting Trevor Kane. You were hitting Dean Porter and that landlord and those bills on the counter." He tapped the side of the heavy bag gently with one finger. "This thing doesn't fight back. They do. And if you carry rage into a cage against someone who fights back, you will lose. Every single time." Naomi looked at the floor. Across the room, Nyla finished her drill set on the ground mat. Shrimp drills, hip escapes, guard transitions, clean, controlled. Her breathing was steady. Her face was focused. Whatever she was feeling inside, she kept it locked behind technique. Coach Tate pointed at her. "Your sister is angry too. You know that, right? She's just as angry as you are. But she's choosing where to put it." He turned back to Naomi. "Discipline wins wars that arrogance starts." That's not just a quote I hung on the wall. That's the truth of fighting, of life, of everything. Naomi nodded slowly. She didn't argue. Not tonight. "Run the combination again," Coach Tate said. "Jab, cross, lead hook, switch kick, smooth, controlled. Like you're painting a picture, not tearing one apart." Naomi set her feet, breathed out. Then she threw the combination again, slower this time, sharper, each strike landing where it was supposed to, instead of wherever her emotions dragged it. Coach Tate watched. He gave a small nod but said nothing. Praise from Leonard Tate was rare. You had to earn it with consistency, not flashes. Nyla rose from the mat, rolling her shoulders. She grabbed a towel from the metal folding chair near the wall and wiped her neck. The gym was small, really small. 3 heavy bags. 1 speed bag mounted to a plywood board, a ground mat that was starting to peel at the corners, a wall of mirrors with a long crack running through the second panel. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, and the air smelled like old rubber and sweat, and something deeper, something that lived in every gym where people came to be better than they were yesterday. This place had been their second home since they were 15. Their father's friend had built it with his own hands after retiring from professional fighting. Every wall had a memory. Every scuff on the mat was a lesson. And it was barely surviving. Coach Tate hadn't mentioned it, but Nyla noticed the overdue electric bill taped to the office door. She noticed the bucket in the corner catching drips from the leaking ceiling. She noticed that half the lights in the back hallway no longer turned on. Everyone was drowning, just at different depths. The front door opened. All three of them turned at the same time. Coach Tate stepped slightly forward, instinct putting him between the door and the twins. A young woman stood in the doorway. She was short, maybe 5'3", with dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, a messenger bag slung across her body, and glasses that sat slightly crooked on her nose. She wore jeans and a plain gray jacket. Her eyes moved quickly around the room, taking in every detail the way a reporter does, cataloging things before anyone can hide them. "We're closed," Coach Tate said flatly. "I know." The woman stepped inside and closed the door behind her. "That's why I'm here now. I didn't want anyone to see me come in." Naomi looked at Nyla. Nyla looked at Coach Tate. "Who are you?" Nyla asked. "My name is Elena Ruiz. I'm a journalism student at the university." She adjusted her bag strap nervously, but her voice was steady. "I've been investigating Blake Mercer and the athletic department for 6 months." The name landed in the room like a stone dropped in still water. Coach Tate didn't move. "Investigating how?" Elena walked forward slowly, stopping near the edge of the mat. She didn't step onto it. She seemed to understand, without being told, that the mat was sacred ground in this place. "I've been pulling records, talking to former students, filing information requests with the administration." She paused, looking directly at Nyla. "You're not the first people Blake has done this to. You're not even close to the first." Naomi stepped forward. "Then why hasn't anybody done anything?" Elena's jaw tightened. "Because every time someone files a complaint, it disappears. Every time a student speaks up, they get pressured into silence, threatened with academic probation, told their scholarships depend on cooperation." She looked between the twins. "Blake's father donates over $2 million a year to the university's athletic program. Football facilities, training equipment, coaching salaries. His money touches everything, and Dean Porter has made it her personal mission to keep that money flowing, no matter what it costs." Nyla felt her stomach tighten. She had suspected something like this after the meeting in Porter's office. The way the dean's eyes had slid away from the truth. The way she had rephrased everything to make the twins sound like the problem. But hearing it laid out plainly, with names and numbers, was different. It made the whole thing feel bigger, heavier. "How many complaints?" Nyla asked quietly. Elena reached into her messenger bag and pulled out a thick manila folder. The edges were worn. A rubber band held it shut. On the front, written in black marker, were 3 words: Mercer cover-ups. She held it out. 7 formal complaints in 2 years, Elena said. 3 from women who said Blake harassed them at the gym. 2 from male students who Trevor physically assaulted during pickup basketball games. 1 from a teaching assistant who reported Blake threatened her after she refused to change his grade. And 1 from a former teammate who tried to report steroid use inside the football locker room. Elena's voice was quiet now. Not because she was afraid, but because the weight of what she was saying demanded it. Every single one was buried. No hearings, no discipline, no record in Blake's official file. Nyla took the folder. She pulled off the rubber band. Inside were printed emails, screenshots of deleted campus forum posts, scanned copies of complaint forms with "Resolved, no action" stamped across them in red ink, and handwritten notes in Elena's tight, careful handwriting connecting dates and names. Naomi read over her shoulder. Her face changed with every page. The anger that Coach Tate had just spent 30 minutes trying to calm was coming back. But this time, it was different. It wasn't wild. It was cold. "Why us?" Nyla asked, looking up from the folder. "Why come to us with this?" Elena met her eyes without flinching. "Because you're the first people who fought back and didn't disappear. You're the first ones who have proof on camera that Blake started it. And you're the first ones the whole campus actually saw standing up." She took a breath. Everyone else got silenced before anyone could notice. "But you two, people already know your names. If we can build a real case, one that goes beyond the university's internal review process, they can't make you vanish." Coach Tate looked at the folder in Nyla's hands. His expression was unreadable. He had lived long enough to know that fighting powerful people sometimes meant losing everything before you won anything. "This could blow up in their faces," he said slowly. "Or it could blow up in yours." "I know," Elena said. She looked at him directly. "But if nobody does anything, Blake Mercer graduates in 18 months, walks into his father's money, and every person he hurts after that is on the people who stayed quiet." Silence filled the gym. Nyla looked down at the folder again. She turned to a page near the back. It was a screenshot of an email from Dean Porter to the university's legal department. The subject line read, Mercer complaint. Recommend immediate closure. No findings. The date was 3 months ago. The complaint was from a girl who said Blake had grabbed her arm so hard he left bruises. Nyla closed the folder. She held it against her chest. She understood now. What happened in Iron Forge wasn't just two bullies picking on new gym members. It was the latest chapter of something that had been going on for years. The gym fight was only the doorway into something darker. Wednesday morning came gray and cold. The kind of morning that felt like a warning. Nyla and Naomi walked onto campus with their heads up. They had agreed on the bus ride over. No reacting. No giving anyone a reason to point a camera at them. They were suspended from Iron Forge, but they were still enrolled students. Nobody could legally stop them from going to class. That didn't mean people weren't going to try. The whispers started before they even reached the main building. A group of students near the front steps went quiet when the twins passed. One girl turned her phone screen away too fast. Neela caught a glimpse of it anyway. It was a campus forum post. She could only read 3 words before the screen disappeared. Brooks Girls. Violent. She kept walking. Inside the hallway, Naomi grabbed Nyla's sleeve and pulled her toward the wall. She tilted her own phone screen up. She had been reading the posts since they left the bus stop. The fake accounts had gone up overnight. 3 different posts on the main campus forum. One claimed Nyla had been caught cheating on a kinesiology exam last semester and that her professor had covered it up as a favor. Another post called both twins attention-chasing clout girls who had staged the Iron Forge confrontation to build a social media following. The third post was worse. It included a blurry photo of Naomi in the gym from the takedown moment and called her dangerous and unstable, claiming she had a history of violent behavior toward other students. None of it was true. Every word was a lie, dressed up to look like a concern. Nyla looked at the posts without speaking. Her jaw was tight. She recognized the playbook. It wasn't random. Somebody had sat down and thought about the most damaging things they could say. Somebody had worked to make the lies feel believable. How many people shared it? She asked quietly. Naomi's voice was flat. Enough. They pushed off the wall and headed to class. A campus security guard appeared at the far end of the hallway. He wasn't responding to anything. He was just standing there, watching them. When they moved toward the stairwell, he followed, staying about 20 feet back, close enough to make a point. Naomi glanced back at him. They've got security babysitting us now. Don't look at him, Nyla said. That's exactly what they want. A reaction, a photo, another post. They climbed the stairs in silence. The second hallway was more crowded. Students moved in both directions between classes. Nyla and Naomi stayed close together, shoulders nearly touching, navigating through the flow of bodies. Then Trevor appeared. He came from the left, walking fast, like he wasn't even paying attention. But his eyes were already locked on Naomi. He hit her shoulder hard with his as he passed. Not an accident. Deliberate. Calculated. Naomi stumbled one step sideways. Trevor leaned in close as he passed her, dropping his voice to barely above a breath. I know your address, sweetheart. Nice neighborhood for a couple of broke girls. He kept walking without slowing down. Blake stood 10 feet away near a set of lockers, watching the whole thing. When Trevor passed him, Blake smiled and looked down at his phone like nothing had happened. Like he was just another student standing in a hallway, minding his business. Naomi spun around. Nyla grabbed her arm, hard. No! Nyla's voice was low and sharp. Not here. Not now. He just threatened us, Naomi said through her teeth. I know. Nyla tightened her grip. Walk. Naomi walked. But every muscle in her body was rigid, and her breathing was coming in short bursts through her nose. Nyla kept her hand on her sister's arm until they were through the hallway doors and outside again. The security guard had stopped following them. He didn't need to anymore. Trevor had already done his job. They sat through class like everything was normal. Nyla took notes. Naomi stared at the desk in front of her and didn't write a single word. The professor talked about muscle tissue recovery and the science of inflammation. Under normal circumstances, Nyla would have found it fascinating. Today, the words just floated past her. After the last class let out, they walked to the student parking lot together. Elena was already there. She was standing a few feet from their car with her phone raised, photographing the damage. All 4 tires were completely flat. Not slow leaks. Not bad luck. The rubber on the front driver's side was sliced clean through in a long diagonal cut. The kind of cut a knife makes when someone draws it across, with purpose and patience. Naomi stood at the edge of the lot and stared. Elena lowered her phone. I got here about 15 minutes ago. I saw it when I was cutting through the lot and texted you right away. She looked at Naomi carefully, the way someone looks at a match they're afraid to get too close to. I already photographed all 4 tires and the parking lot camera. She pointed to the pole near the lot entrance. But the camera angle cuts off right at the 2nd row. Your car is in the 3rd row. Whoever did it knew exactly where to park you out of frame. Of course they did, Naomi said. Her voice was quiet. That was the part that scared Nyla more than shouting would have. Elena had approached 2 students who had been in the lot during the relevant window of time. One said she hadn't noticed anything. The other one had walked away mid-sentence without a word, staring straight ahead like Elena hadn't been speaking at all. Nobody's going to talk, Elena said. Not while Blake's name is attached to it. Not openly. She looked at Nyla. But I've got photos, timestamps. The parking lot entry log might show who badged into this section. Nyla nodded slowly. She was already thinking through next steps, organizing what they had and what they still needed. She looked at their slashed tires and felt the anger sitting low in her stomach like a stone, heavy and still, not boiling over, just sitting there, waiting. She looked at her sister. Naomi hadn't moved. She was still staring at the ruined tires, both hands curled into fists at her sides. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. Her eyes were shining, and it wasn't sadness. It was pure, shaking rage, the kind that builds up from too many hits in too many places in too short a time. The fake posts, the security guard, Trevor's voice against her ear, and now this. Naomi! Nyla stepped beside her and kept her voice even. "Look at me." Naomi didn't look at her. She kept staring at the tires. "Naomi." Finally, Naomi turned her head. Her jaw was working like she was grinding glass between her back teeth. Nyla held her gaze. "We need evidence, not revenge." Naomi looked back at the tires. Her whole body was shaking. Not from cold. The day had barely warmed up, but the shaking was coming from somewhere deeper than weather. It was the kind of shaking that happens when a person has absorbed too much and has nowhere to put it. She stared at those 4 ruined tires and shook. Wednesday evening, the campus felt empty. Most students had gone to dinner or back to their dorms. The Iron Forge Athletic Club sat quiet in the basement of the Student Recreation Center, its glass doors reflecting the hallway lights. Marcy Bell waited by the entrance, keys in her hand. She looked nervous. "You've got maybe 20 minutes, she said when the twins approached. "The night security guard doesn't start his rounds down here until 8:30, but I can't guarantee nobody else shows up." Nyla nodded. "We just need our gear from the lockers. And maybe take a look around," Naomi added quietly. Marcy's eyes flicked between them. "Look, I believe you two. But if anyone asks, I never saw you tonight. I could lose my job over this." "We understand," Nyla said. "Thank you." The gym felt different, empty. The overhead lights were dimmed to half power, casting long shadows between the equipment. Their footsteps echoed off the polished concrete floors. Nyla headed toward the front desk area, where they'd left some workout journals. Naomi walked toward the women's locker room. That's when Trevor stepped out from behind the squat rack. He wasn't alone. 2 football players flanked him, both bigger than Trevor, both grinning like they'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. One had his phone out, already recording. "Well, well," Trevor said, his voice carrying across the empty gym. "Look who's trespassing after hours." Naomi stopped walking. She was maybe 15 feet from the locker room entrance. The 3 of them blocked her path completely. "We're not trespassing," she said. "Marcy, let us in." "Marcy's not supposed to let suspended students into the facility," Trevor said. He pulled out his own phone and held it up, the camera light blinking red. "Especially violent ones." At the front desk, Nyla heard voices. She looked up from the journals she'd been gathering. "You know what I think?" Trevor continued, stepping closer to Naomi. "I think you two are here to cause more trouble. Maybe break some equipment. Maybe hurt some people." "I'm here to get my stuff and leave," Naomi said. Her voice was steady, but Nyla could hear the tension underneath it. She started walking toward them, her sneakers squeaking against the floor. "That's not what it looks like to me," one of the football players said. "Looks like she's threatening us, Trevor." "Yeah," the other one agreed. "Real threatening behavior." Trevor smiled. "Good thing we're recording everything. For evidence." Naomi's hands curled into fists at her sides. "Get out of my way." "Or what?" Trevor stepped closer. He was close enough to touch her now. Close enough that his voice dropped to a whisper the recording wouldn't pick up clearly. "You'll do what, exactly? Hit me? Go ahead. I'm begging you." Nyla was walking faster now. Trevor raised his voice again. "She's getting aggressive, guys. Real hostile." "Move!" Naomi said through gritted teeth. "Make me!" That's when Trevor's hand shot out and cracked across Naomi's face. The slap echoed through the empty gym like a gunshot. Naomi's head snapped to the side. Her cheek flared bright red. She stumbled back a step, more from shock than force. The football players kept recording. Trevor grinned. "Oops, self-defense." Naomi's whole body went rigid. Every muscle tensed like a coiled spring. Her breathing became sharp and shallow. Her right hand drew back instinctively, fist clenched, ready to drive forward into Trevor's smug face. But she didn't swing. She stood there, trembling with rage, cheek burning, and didn't swing. "Come on!" Trevor taunted. "Hit me back. I know you want to." Naomi's fist shook. Her whole arm shook, but she kept it pulled back, held in check by pure willpower. "She's threatening us," one of the football players said loudly for the camera. "Look how aggressive she is." That's when Nyla reached them. "Get away from her." "Oh, good," Trevor said. "The other one's here. Now we can get both of you on camera being violent." The sound of footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Multiple sets of footsteps, moving fast. Campus security uniforms appeared in the doorway, radios crackling. "We got a report of a disturbance," the lead security guard called out. Blake Mercer appeared behind them, wearing a concerned expression that looked practiced in a mirror. "Thank God you're here," Blake said. "These girls broke in and attacked my friends." The security guards looked at the scene. Trevor holding his phone, recording. The football players doing the same. Naomi standing with her fist pulled back, face red with anger, and the mark of Trevor's slap. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your hand," the security guard said to Naomi. She looked at him like she didn't understand the words. "Now, ma'am." Slowly, Naomi lowered her fist. Her whole body was still shaking. The setup was obvious, the timing too perfect. The phone's already recording when security arrived. But obvious didn't matter when 3 football players' word went against 2 suspended students. Later, in the passenger seat of Coach Tate's pickup truck, Naomi finally broke. She'd held it together through the security questioning, through Blake's fake concern and Trevor's lies, through Dean Porter's phone call saying she'd created another disturbance. But now, in the dark cab of the truck, she fell apart. "I should have hit him," she sobbed. "I should have knocked his teeth out." Coach Tate drove slowly, giving her time. "He slapped me in front of those cameras and I just stood there like—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Like a coward." "You showed discipline," Nyla said from the middle seat. "No." Naomi shook her head violently. "Discipline would have been not going there at all. What I showed was weakness. I froze up when it mattered." Her shoulders heaved. "He put his hands on me, and I did nothing. Nothing. What kind of fighter am I?" The question hung in the dark truck cab like smoke, thick and poisonous. Outside, streetlights flashed past in steady rhythm, marking time and distance, but not providing any answers. Naomi buried her face in her hands and wept. The office smelled like old leather and sweat. Papers covered Coach Tate's desk in messy piles. Fight posters from the 1990s hung crooked on the walls. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across 4 faces gathered around a folding table. Elena Ruiz opened her laptop and pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. Her hands shook slightly as she spread everything across the table. "What I'm about to show you changes everything," she said. "This isn't just about gym bullying anymore." Nyla leaned forward. Naomi sat with her arms crossed, still angry from the locker room setup. Coach Tate poured coffee from a thermos, his weathered face serious. Elena pulled up a bank statement on her screen. Blake Mercer isn't just some rich football player throwing his weight around. He's running an underground betting operation using campus athletes. She pointed to highlighted numbers. "Look at these deposits. 15,000 here, 22,000 there. All cash, all undocumented." "Betting on what?" Coach Tate asked. "Everything. Football games, basketball, wrestling matches. But the real money comes from fixed outcomes." Elena clicked to another document. "Athletes throw games, fake injuries, miss key plays. Blake takes bets from off-campus gamblers who think they're getting inside information." Nyla studied the screen. "How do you know this?" "I've been investigating corruption in athletics for months. Blake and Trevor aren't just bullies. They're criminals." Elena's voice got harder. "And they're using steroids to control the outcomes." She showed them photographs of vials and syringes. "Performance enhancers for when they need to win." muscle relaxants, and sedatives for when they need to lose. Trevor handles distribution. Blake handles the money. Naomi finally spoke. What does this have to do with us? Dean Porter knows everything. Elena pulled out printed emails. She's deleted complaints, buried assault reports, and covered up failed drug tests, all to protect Blake's father's donations to the athletic program. Coach Tate read over the emails, his jaw tightening. How much money are we talking about? Blake's family has given over $2 million in the past 3 years. Porter will do anything to keep that flowing. Elena's voice turned bitter, including letting Blake and Trevor terrorize female students. She opened another file. There was a girl last semester, Sarah Martinez. Blake cornered her at a party, assaulted her, and when she reported it, Porter buried the complaint. Sarah transferred schools to get away from him. The office fell silent except for the buzzing light. Neela felt sick. You have proof of all this? Partial proof. Bank records, some emails, witness statements. Elena closed the laptop. But I need something concrete. A confession, original video footage, or direct financial evidence. What kind of confession? Naomi asked. Blake or Trevor, admitting to the gambling, the steroids, or the assaults. Something recorded and undeniable. Elena looked at both twins. Something that would force the police to act regardless of Porter's influence. Coach Tate set down his coffee cup hard. These boys aren't just bullies, they're predators. Exactly. And Porter is their protector. Elena gathered her papers. The gym harassment was just their way of testing boundaries. When you fought back, you became a threat to their entire operation. Neela understood now why Blake had looked so furious after being thrown down. It wasn't about embarrassment. It was about control. So what do we do? Naomi asked. Elena looked directly at her. We expose them, but it has to be perfect. One mistake, one uncontrolled reaction, and they'll spin it to make us look like the criminals. Nyla nodded slowly. I'll help you get what you need. She turned to her sister, whose face still burned with anger from the locker room incident. But Naomi, you have to promise me something. When we make our move, you stay disciplined. One uncontrolled punch could destroy everything. Thursday morning arrived with Elena's article blazing across every campus news feed and social media platform. The headline read, University Athletic Program Linked to Gambling, Steroids, and Covered-Up Assaults. Neela refreshed her phone screen for the 10th time in 5 minutes, watching the view count climb. Comments poured in from students sharing their own stories about Blake and Trevor. Screenshots of deleted posts reappeared. Photos of bruises and threatening messages surfaced. Look at this, Naomi said, showing her sister a video of students gathering outside Iron Forge. They're actually protesting. The crowd grew larger throughout the morning. Signs demanded justice for assault victims and accountability from the administration. Students chanted outside the athletic building. Local news vans parked along campus roads. By noon, Blake's local protein supplement sponsorship was terminated. The company released a statement distancing themselves from any athlete under investigation. Trevor's Instagram account disappeared entirely, along with his TikTok videos that had mocked other students. Dean Porter held an emergency press conference at 2 o'clock. Standing behind a podium with the university seal, she spoke in measured tones about transparency and student safety. We take all allegations seriously and have launched a comprehensive internal review, Porter announced. This administration remains committed to maintaining the highest ethical standards. Neela watched the live stream with Coach Tate in his office. Porter's words sounded supportive, but her eyes looked cold and calculating. She's covering herself, Coach Tate muttered. But the pressure might force her hand. Elena called that afternoon with better news. 3 more victims came forward, all with similar stories about Blake. The police are finally asking questions Porter can't deflect. The momentum felt unstoppable. Students approached the twins between classes to offer support. Marcy texted that several Iron Forge members were threatening to cancel memberships unless Blake and Trevor were banned. "Your suspension hearing got moved to tomorrow morning," Coach Tate told them. "If Porter lifts it by Friday, we can still get your qualifier paperwork submitted." For the first time all week, hope felt real. That evening, Nyla and Naomi shared dinner with their mother in their small apartment kitchen. The medical bills still sat on the counter, but the atmosphere felt lighter. "I'm proud of you girls," their mother said, squeezing both their hands. "Your father would be proud too. You stood up when it mattered." Naomi actually smiled. Maybe things are finally changing. Neela felt her shoulders relax for the first time since Monday. The article was working. People were listening. Justice seemed possible. Across town, Blake sat in his expensive apartment, staring at Elena's article on his phone screen. His jaw clenched as he read comment after comment calling him a predator and demanding his arrest. Trevor paced behind him, panicking about the deleted social media and lost sponsorships. Blake's voice stayed deadly calm when he finally spoke. "Burn the source." The phone rang at 5:30 in the morning, jolting Nyla from deep sleep. Coach Tate's voice cracked through the speaker, raw with panic and smoke. "The gym's on fire. Everything's burning. Get down here now." Neela's blood turned ice cold. She shook Naomi awake, and they threw on clothes, racing through empty streets as orange light flickered against the dawn sky. The smell of smoke hit them 3 blocks away. Fire trucks surrounded Coach Tate's gym when they arrived. Flames shot through the roof, while firefighters aimed thick streams of water at the building. The front windows had already blown out, glass scattered across the sidewalk like broken stars. "Where's Coach?" Naomi screamed over the sirens. A paramedic pointed toward an ambulance where Leonard Tate sat on a stretcher, oxygen mask covering his face. His eyes were bloodshot and watering, but he was conscious. When he saw the twins, he tried to pull off the mask. "All the records," he gasped. "Your qualifier paperwork, the training logs. Everything's gone." Nyla's heart sank as she watched 20 years of Coach Tate's life disappear into smoke and ash. The heavy bags where she'd learned her first combinations. The mats where Naomi had practiced her kicks. The office where their father had signed their first training contracts before he died. "Sir, you need to keep this on," the paramedic insisted, pushing the oxygen mask back over Coach Tate's mouth. "Smoke inhalation can be serious." The fire chief approached them as the ambulance doors closed. "You girls know this man?" "He's our trainer," Nyla said. "What happened?" "Started around 4 a.m. in the back storage room. Accelerant was definitely used. This wasn't an accident." The chief's expression was grim. "We'll investigate, but the whole building's a total loss." Naomi stared at the collapsing roof. Who would do this? But Nyla already knew. The timing was too perfect. Elena's article had been gaining momentum, forcing Dean Porter into damage control. Blake and Trevor were losing their protection. Desperate people did desperate things. They followed the ambulance to the hospital, where doctors admitted Coach Tate for observation. His lungs needed time to clear the smoke, but he would recover. The gym would not. By noon, everything got worse. Nyla's phone buzzed with notifications as Trevor's new video went viral across campus social media. The footage showed carefully edited clips of Naomi in the Iron Forge locker room, cutting out Trevor's slap and his taunting words. Instead, it looked like Naomi had cornered him aggressively, appearing to threaten violence without provocation. The editing was professional. Trevor's fear looked genuine because the clips eliminated all context. Naomi appeared to be the aggressor, a dangerous student-athlete targeting innocent victims. "Lies," Naomi whispered, watching her image get twisted into something unrecognizable. Every second of that is lies. The comments section exploded with outrage. Students who had supported them yesterday now called them frauds and bullies. The narrative flipped completely in 6 hours. Dean Porter moved quickly. By 2 o'clock, both twins received official suspension notices, barring them from all campus facilities, pending a full disciplinary review. By 4 o'clock, the MMA qualifier committee sent an email revoking their invitation until all misconduct allegations were resolved. Their future died in a single afternoon. As evening fell, Neela and Naomi sat on the curb outside the burned gym ruins. Smoke still drifted from the collapsed roof. Their clothes smelled like ash and defeat. Emergency tape fluttered in the wind around the property. Students walked past without making eye contact. The same people who had cheered their takedown videos now whispered about edited footage and aggressive behavior. Blake and Trevor had won by destroying everything that mattered. Naomi's voice came out barely above a whisper. They took everything. Neela stared at the blackened walls where she had learned to fight, where her father had taught her that strength meant protecting what you loved. The weight of complete failure pressed down on her chest. But something stirred deep inside. Something that couldn't be burned or edited or suspended. Not everything, she said quietly. They forgot we're still breathing. Friday afternoon sunlight streamed through Elena's dorm room window as she hunched over her laptop, scrolling through hours of archived live stream footage. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen, but she refused to stop. Somewhere in Trevor's digital footprint lay the proof they needed. Trevor was careless with technology. He live-streamed everything: workouts, parties, random campus walks, craving constant attention and validation. Most of his content was mindless garbage, but Elena suspected his ego had captured something valuable during the chaos of recent events. She clicked through Wednesday night's archived streams. Trevor had been broadcasting from his dorm room, showing off his expensive gaming setup and bragging to viewers about handling problems. The stream quality was poor, with Trevor moving in and out of frame while talking on his phone. Elena almost missed it. At timestamp 11:47 p.m., Trevor stepped away from his computer while still broadcasting live. His phone conversation became audible in the background as he paced near his window. Elena turned up her laptop volume and leaned closer. Trevor's voice came through clearly. "Blake, are you sure about this? Burning down the gym seems extreme." Elena's heart stopped. She rewound the audio and listened again. Blake's voice was fainter but unmistakable through Trevor's phone speaker. "We had to destroy Tate's gym before nationals. That old fool was going to help them qualify no matter what Porter said. Now they got nothing." Trevor laughed, the sound cold and satisfied. "And my edited footage makes Naomi look like the real aggressor. Perfect timing, bro. Just make sure that video stays up. Let them try to prove it's fake." Elena saved the audio clip immediately, then made 3 backup copies on different devices. Her hands shook as she realized what she held: a complete confession to arson and deliberate frame-up. But she needed more than just her word. This evidence required witnesses and credibility. She called Marcy Bell first. Marcy arrived within 20 minutes, her face pale but determined. Elena played the audio twice, while Marcy listened with growing anger. "Those monsters," Marcy whispered. "They destroyed everything Leonard built." "Will you help me go public with this?" Elena asked. Marcy nodded without hesitation. "I'm done being afraid of them." Elena had been quietly reaching out to other students throughout the week. 2 young women agreed to meet them Friday evening, both former victims of Blake and Trevor's harassment who had stayed silent out of fear. Sarah Martinez, a sophomore psychology major, had been cornered by Blake at a fraternity party last semester. Trevor had filmed the encounter while Blake made crude comments about her body. When Sarah tried reporting it, Dean Porter claimed the footage was inconclusive. Jennifer Park, a senior business student, described how Trevor had stalked her social media for months, posting humiliating comments and sharing private photos she had never consented to distribute. Campus security told her to avoid conflict instead of investigating. Both women had watched the twins' situation unfold with familiar dread, recognizing the same pattern of harassment they had experienced. "We never had anyone fight back before," Sarah said quietly. "Maybe together we can finally make them pay." Meanwhile, at Riverside General Hospital, Nyla and Naomi sat beside Coach Tate's bed. The oxygen mask had been removed, but his voice remained hoarse from smoke inhalation. "I'm sorry we couldn't protect the gym," Nyla said, guilt crushing her chest. Coach Tate reached into his bedside drawer and pulled out a pair of worn leather boxing gloves, deep brown with faded gold laces. "These were mine from my amateur days. Won 17 straight fights wearing these." He placed them in Nyla's hands. The leather felt soft and powerful, carrying the weight of victories earned through discipline and heart. "Justice needs both truth and courage," he said firmly. "Elena's got the truth. You girls got the courage. Time to combine them." Naomi shifted uncomfortably. "Coach, I need to apologize. I've been wanting revenge instead of justice. I let anger make me stupid." "Anger ain't stupid if you use it right," Coach Tate replied. "Nyla, you've been carrying anger too. Don't pretend you ain't." Nyla looked down at the gloves, surprised by his directness. "My anger has kept me standing," she admitted quietly. "But Naomi's anger makes her brave enough to fight when I'm too cautious. That's why you're twins," Coach Tate smiled. "You balance each other. Now, go balance those boys." Elena's phone buzzed as she prepared to upload the audio confession. Her heart hammered as she typed the caption, "Trevor Kane and Blake Mercer confessing to arson and evidence tampering. Listen for yourselves." She hit publish at 6:23 p.m. Within minutes, the audio spread across every campus social media platform. Students who had been defending Blake and Trevor suddenly heard their own voices, admitting to destroying Coach Tate's gym and framing Naomi with edited footage. The comment sections exploded with outrage. The campus demanded Blake and Trevor answer publicly. Friday evening arrived with thick tension hanging over the campus like storm clouds. Blake Mercer and Trevor Kane strutted into the off-campus charity fight showcase at the Old Warehouse District, their usual crew of football teammates trailing behind them like loyal attack dogs. The event was supposed to raise money for local youth programs. Amateur fighters, college wrestlers, and martial arts clubs had signed up weeks ago. Blake and Trevor hadn't been invited, but their family money opened doors that should have stayed closed. "This is perfect," Blake muttered to Trevor as they surveyed the crowd of about 200 people. "We show up, look like community heroes, and remind everyone why we're the real athletes on campus." Trevor pulled out his phone and started recording a live stream. His follower count had dropped since Elena's audio leak, but he still had enough viewers to spread their message. "What's up, everyone?" Trevor grinned into the camera. "We're here at this charity event supporting real fighters, not like those fraud twins who've been crying victim all week." Blake leaned into the frame, his polished smile masking the rage burning behind his eyes. "Yeah, Nyla and Naomi Brooks. Where are they now?" Hiding behind fake evidence and edited audio clips. They talk tough online, but won't step up when real competition shows. "Cowards," Trevor laughed. "They sucker-punched us in the gym when we weren't ready, then acted like they're professional fighters. I bet they've never been in a real sanctioned bout in their lives." The comments started flooding in immediately. Most were angry responses defending the twins, but Blake and Trevor ignored them, feeding off their own arrogance. "If they're so tough, why don't they prove it?" Blake continued. "Right here, right now. But they won't. because they know we'd destroy them in front of everyone. Miles away, Naomi sat in the ruins of Coach Tate's gym, watching the live stream on Elena's laptop. The smell of smoke and melted rubber still hung in the air. Burned equipment lay scattered around them like the skeleton of their dreams. "Look at these idiots," Elena said, disgusted. "They're actually bragging after burning down your gym." Neela paced behind them, wearing Coach Tate's old championship gloves on her hands. The leather felt warm and alive, like it carried the spirit of every fighter who had ever refused to quit. "They think we're broken," Naomi said quietly, her voice cold as winter steel. Without asking permission, she grabbed Elena's laptop and started typing a response in the live-stream chat. But that felt too small, too hidden. Instead, she started her own live stream right from the gym's destroyed interior. Within seconds, notifications exploded across campus social media. Students who had been watching Blake and Trevor immediately switched over. Blake, Trevor. Naomi's voice cut through the phone speaker like a blade. "You want to prove you're real fighters? Stop talking and fight us where everyone can see." The chat erupted. Students started tagging friends, sharing the stream, demanding the showdown happen immediately. Nyla stepped into frame beside her sister. "Tonight, at your charity showcase, sanctioned bouts with referees, medical staff, and cameras recording everything. No edited footage," Naomi continued. "No lies. Just you, us, and the truth in front of witnesses." Back at the warehouse, Blake's live stream viewer count plummeted as everyone switched to watch the twins. His face darkened with fury, but Trevor just laughed. "They actually want to get humiliated in public," Trevor said. "This is better than I hoped." The showcase promoter, Marcus Webb, approached them nervously. He was a former amateur boxer trying to build community programs through legitimate fighting events. "Listen, I heard about the challenge. My lawyers say if both parties consent and we follow athletic commission rules, we can add 2 exhibition bouts tonight." Blake's father had donated money to Marcus's youth program last year. The pressure was immediate and obvious. "The entire campus is watching this," Marcus continued. "If I don't sanction the fights, people will say I'm protecting you. But if you don't show up, they'll call you cowards forever." Dean Porter arrived 20 minutes later, demanding the event be canceled. But by then, over 3,000 students were live streaming, sharing, and heading to the warehouse. The public pressure became too massive to contain. "This is a disaster," Porter told Marcus. "If someone gets seriously hurt, the lawsuits will destroy everyone." "Then make sure you have good medical staff," Marcus replied coldly. He had seen Elena's evidence and heard the audio confession. His respect for institutional authority had evaporated. At 8 o'clock, Nyla and Naomi arrived at the warehouse wearing matching black fighting shorts and sports tops. Across the chest of each shirt was Coach Tate's gym logo, a simple design of 2 gloves touching, representing respect between fighters. The crowd parted as they walked through. Some students cheered. Others filmed nervously. Everyone seemed to understand they were witnessing something that would be talked about for years. Elena followed close behind, camera ready to document everything. Marcy Bell, the gym employee who had first reached out to them, stood near the entrance with Sarah and Jennifer, the 2 women who had come forward with their own stories of harassment. Coach Tate had insisted on leaving the hospital against medical advice. He sat ringside in a wheelchair, oxygen tank beside him, but his eyes burned with fierce pride. The warehouse had been transformed into a legitimate fighting venue. 2 regulation cages sat side by side, with professional lighting, medical stations, and referee equipment. Marcus had called in favors to make everything official. Blake and Trevor waited near the first cage, surrounded by their football teammates. They looked confident, pumped up, ready to prove their dominance in front of the biggest audience they had ever faced. But something had changed in their expressions. The easy arrogance was still there, but underneath lurked a flicker of genuine uncertainty. The twins looked different than they had in the gym, more focused, more dangerous, more like actual fighters instead of angry college students. Trevor stepped toward the first cage, rolling his shoulders and grinning at the crowd like he owned the building. His eyes found Naomi and locked on hers across the warehouse floor. "Ready to get embarrassed, princess?" he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Naomi stepped forward to meet him, and the entire warehouse fell silent. Trevor climbed into the cage first, bouncing on his toes and flexing for the cameras. His grin stretched wide and cruel as he stared down at Naomi like he still owned the night. The cage door slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed through the warehouse. 3,000 people held their breath as Naomi Brooks and Trevor Kane faced each other under the harsh live stream lights. The referee, a professional brought in by Marcus, checked both fighters and stepped back. "Touch gloves if you want to show respect." Trevor spat on the mat instead. "I don't respect trash." Naomi kept her hands at her sides. Her dark eyes stayed locked on Trevor's face, reading every micro-expression, every tell that Coach Tate had taught her to recognize in an opponent's body language. "Fight!" the referee called. Trevor exploded forward immediately, not with technique, but with raw aggression. He threw a wild haymaker that missed Naomi's head by inches, then grabbed the cage fence with his left hand to steady himself while throwing an illegal elbow with his right. The crowd booed, but the referee let it slide as a warning. Naomi circled left, staying light on her feet. Trevor pursued her like a rabid animal, throwing combinations that had power but no precision. He caught her with a glancing shot to the shoulder, then immediately grabbed the fence again to leverage a brutal knee toward her ribs. This time, it connected. Pain exploded through Naomi's side. She stumbled backward, tasting copper in her mouth. Blood appeared on her lip, where she had bitten down hard to avoid crying out. Trevor grinned and raised his arms to the crowd, like he had already won. "Come on, tough girl. Where's all that mouth now?" The warehouse erupted in competing chants. Blake's football teammates screamed encouragement. Students who supported the twins booed Trevor's dirty tactics. The noise became deafening. Trevor pressed his advantage, throwing another illegal elbow that grazed Naomi's temple. When she stumbled, he grabbed her sports top and tried to slam her against the cage wall. "Your daddy's gym burned real nice," he whispered in her ear, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "Too bad your old coach didn't burn with it." Something white-hot flashed behind Naomi's eyes. Her hands clenched into fists. Every muscle in her body coiled to explode into violence, without discipline, without thought, without control. But then, Coach Tate's voice cut through the rage like a blade through smoke. She could see him ringside in his wheelchair, oxygen mask over his face, but his eyes burning with fierce intensity. Discipline beats anger every time. Naomi forced herself to breathe, to reset, to remember everything she had learned over 8 years of training. Trevor threw another wild combination, expecting her to crumble under pressure. Instead, Naomi slipped left and chopped a devastating kick into his lead leg. The impact sounded like a baseball bat hitting wood. Trevor's confident grin faltered. He tried to rush forward again, but Naomi had found her rhythm. She slipped his next punch and landed a clean body shot that folded him slightly at the waist. When he swung back desperately, she ducked under and kicked his other leg, harder this time. The crowd could see Trevor's movement changing. His bouncing confidence became a hesitant shuffle as pain shot through both thighs with every step. "Stand still and fight me," he screamed, frustration replacing cockiness. But Naomi kept moving, kept chopping at his legs, kept making him miss. Every wild swing left him more off balance. Every missed punch made him angrier and sloppier. The referee called time for a brief break to check a cut above Trevor's eye from where he had run face first into the cage while chasing Naomi. During the pause, Trevor glared across the cage. "I'm gonna hurt you bad, little girl. Then I'm gonna find your sister." When fighting resumed, Trevor charged like a desperate bull. But desperation made him stupid. He threw a massive overhand right after the referee had clearly called break to check Naomi's lip. The illegal strike was obvious to everyone in the warehouse. The crowd exploded in outrage. Even Blake's teammates looked uncomfortable. But Trevor's illegal punch had left him completely exposed. Naomi stepped forward and threw the cleanest head kick of her life. Her shin connected with Trevor's temple like a hammer striking an anvil. The impact echoed through the warehouse louder than the crowd's roar. Trevor's eyes rolled back. His knees buckled. He crashed to the mat like a felled tree. Naomi immediately followed him down, establishing side control with textbook precision. Trevor tried to buck and roll, but his movements were sluggish and uncoordinated. Naomi transitioned smoothly to mount position and began landing controlled strikes to his exposed ribs. "Stop! Stop!" Trevor gasped, no longer the confident predator who had entered the cage. The referee stepped in and waved his hands. "Fight's over!" The warehouse erupted. Students jumped from their seats. Camera phones flashed like lightning. The live stream chat exploded with thousands of messages per second. Trevor lay stunned on the mat, staring at the warehouse ceiling with unfocused eyes. Blood trickled from his nose. His chest rose and fell in rapid, panicked breaths. Naomi stood over him slowly, her own chest heaving but her expression calm and controlled. She looked down at the boy who had tormented her, who had burned Coach Tate's gym, who had tried to destroy her future. "You never owned me," she said quietly, but the arena microphones caught every word. Medics carried Trevor out on a stretcher while he mumbled incoherently about his head hurting. The warehouse crowd stayed on their feet, energy crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Blake Mercer stepped through the cage door. He looked different than the cocky football star who had bullied them in Iron Forge. His shoulders were broader, his arms more swollen. Veins bulged unnaturally across his neck and forearms. The steroids had transformed him into something that barely looked human. "Your sister got lucky," Blake said as he rolled his massive shoulders. "You won't." Nyla touched her gloves together and centered herself. She had watched Blake's body change over the past months. Coach Tate had warned her that steroid users got stronger, but also more reckless. Their cardio suffered. Their joints became brittle. She just had to survive long enough for his fake strength to crumble. The referee brought them to the center. "Keep it clean. Protect yourselves at all times." Blake grinned. "I'm gonna break every bone in your body." The fight began. Blake exploded forward like a freight train. His first punch missed Nyla's head by inches and cracked against the cage so hard the entire structure shook. His second punch caught her shoulder and sent her stumbling backward. He grabbed her around the waist and slammed her against the fence with terrifying force. The impact drove the air from her lungs. Pain shot through her back and ribs. "Not so tough now," Blake roared. He pinned her against the cage and drove short, brutal punches into her ribs. Each strike felt like a sledgehammer. Nyla gasped and tasted blood in her mouth. But she had trained for this moment her entire life. Instead of trying to escape, Nyla wrapped her arms around Blake's thick torso and pulled him into a tight clinch. She locked her hands behind his back and forced him to carry her full weight while she caught her breath. Blake tried to throw her off, but the clinch position neutralized his power advantage. He pushed and pulled and twisted, but Nyla held on like her life depended on it. "Let go of me," Blake grunted. 30 seconds passed. 40. 50. Blake's breathing became heavier. The unnatural muscle mass from steroids was demanding oxygen his cardiovascular system couldn't provide. Sweat poured down his face. Nyla felt his grip loosening. She broke the clinch and stepped back, watching Blake's chest heave. A cut had opened above her left eye, and blood trickled down her cheek, but she was still standing. Blake wiped sweat from his forehead and charged again, throwing wild haymakers that missed by wider margins than before. Nyla slipped under one massive punch and drove a hard uppercut into his exposed ribs. Blake doubled over, gasping. "What's wrong?" Nyla asked. "Getting tired already?" Blake's face twisted with rage and desperation. "You think you're better than me? My family built this university. My father owns people like you." The crowd heard every word through the arena microphones. Camera phones captured his snarling face as he revealed exactly who he really was beneath the polished public image. Nyla circled away from his increasingly sloppy attacks. She landed another body shot, then another. Each punch sank deeper into Blake's softening midsection. "You're nothing!" Blake screamed, his voice cracking. "Porter does whatever my father tells her. We burned that gym because we wanted to. Nobody can touch me." The live stream chat exploded. Students in the warehouse looked at each other in shock. Blake was confessing to everything while thousands of people watched. Blake stumbled forward, exhausted and desperate. Nyla stepped to the side, grabbed his arm, and used his own momentum to trip him to the mat. He crashed down hard, all pretense of athletic grace gone. Nyla immediately took his back, hooking her legs around his waist and sliding her arm under his chin. She locked in a rear naked choke with perfect technique, the kind Coach Tate had drilled into her 1,000 times. "No! No! Get off me!" Blake thrashed wildly, but he was trapped. The choke tightened. Blake's face turned red, then purple. His eyes bulged with panic as oxygen stopped reaching his brain. Around the warehouse, the crowd rose to its feet. The roar was deafening. Blake's hand slapped frantically against Nyla's arm. He was tapping out. The referee stepped between Nyla and Blake as the tap-out was confirmed. Blake gasped and rolled onto his side, defeated and humiliated in front of thousands of witnesses. Police officers moved through the crowd toward the cage. Detective Maria Santos had been watching the live stream from her patrol car when Blake's confession started pouring out. She'd called for backup immediately. "Blake Mercer, you're under arrest," Detective Santos announced as she opened the cage door. "You have the right to remain silent." Blake struggled to his feet, still dizzy from the choke. "You can't arrest me. My father will have your badge." "Your father's been calling our station for the last hour trying to do damage control," Detective Santos said, snapping handcuffs onto Blake's wrists. "Turns out, confessing to arson on a live stream makes our job pretty easy." Trevor was already in custody near the medical station, still groggy from Naomi's head kick. Officer James Mitchell read him his rights, while paramedics checked his pupils for signs of concussion. The warehouse crowd pressed against the barriers, phones recording every moment. Students who had been silent for months suddenly found their voices, shouting questions at Blake as he was led away. "Is it true you burned the gym? Did your father really pay off Dean Porter? How many girls did you hurt?" Blake kept his head down, no longer the confident predator who had terrorized students for years. The steroids that had built his artificial muscles couldn't help him now. Elena Ruiz pushed through the crowd with her camera, broadcasting live to her journalism channel. "Blake Mercer and Trevor Kane are being arrested for assault, arson conspiracy, steroid distribution, and conspiracy related to illegal gambling operations. The evidence includes recorded confessions from tonight's fight and audio recovered from deleted live streams." Within hours, the story exploded across social media. Blake's father issued a statement distancing the family from his son's actions. The university launched an emergency board meeting. Donors who had stayed silent suddenly demanded accountability. Dean Evelyn Porter's resignation letter arrived before midnight. Elena had leaked emails proving Porter had buried complaints, deleted disciplinary records, and coordinated with Blake's father to silence victims. The university accepted her resignation immediately to avoid further scandal. Detective Santos worked through the night processing evidence. The recovered audio from Trevor's live stream provided clear proof of their arson conspiracy. Blake's confessions during the fight had been broadcast to over 50,000 viewers. Former victims started coming forward with testimony they'd been too frightened to share before. By Tuesday morning, both Blake and Trevor faced multiple felony charges. The district attorney announced she would seek maximum sentences given the scope of their crimes and the institutional corruption that had protected them. The university reinstated Nyla and Naomi with full apologies. Their MMA qualifier invitation was restored with expedited processing. The athletic department offered them full scholarships and access to any training facilities on campus. News outlets picked up the story nationwide. Video clips of the twins' victories played on sports networks, alongside discussions about campus corruption and institutional accountability. 3 weeks later, Coach Leonard Tate walked slowly through the front door of his rebuilt gym. His lungs were still healing from smoke inhalation, but his doctors had cleared him for light activity. The new facility was twice the size of the old one. Community donations had poured in from across the country after Elena's reporting went national. Local businesses donated equipment. Former MMA professionals sent signed gear and training materials. A gleaming new sign hung above the entrance: Brooks Combat Academy. Nyla and Naomi were leading a youth class when Coach Tate arrived. 20 kids from the neighborhood threw combinations on heavy bags under their instruction. The sight made his eyes water, though he blamed it on residual smoke sensitivity. "Looking good in here," Coach Tate said, his voice still slightly hoarse. Naomi grinned and hugged him carefully. "We kept your rules. Discipline first, attitude second, technique third. Smart girl. How are the sponsorship deals treating you?" Nyla adjusted a young boy's stance on the bag. "3 companies want to sign us after nationals. Plus, the university is covering all our expenses through graduation. You earned every bit of it." The afternoon training session ended with the kids practicing basic defensive positions. Nyla noticed how focused they were, how seriously they took the responsibility of learning to protect themselves. As the last students filtered out, a small black girl appeared in the doorway. She couldn't have been more than 12, wearing an oversized hoodie and clutching a crumpled $20 bill. She stepped inside hesitantly, looking around at the pristine equipment and motivational posters covering the walls. Nyla approached slowly, recognizing the nervousness she'd felt walking into Iron Forge just weeks earlier. "Hi there. First time?" The girl nodded, not trusting her voice. "What's your name?" "Zara." Nyla smiled and pulled a pair of youth training gloves from the equipment rack. She knelt down and helped Zara slip them on, adjusting the Velcro straps until they fit properly. "First lesson," Nyla said, looking directly into Zara's eyes. "Nobody decides where you belong except you." I hope you enjoyed that story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.